Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second session of our Gifts of Wisdom Author Summit, featuring our book, Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment, which we published in October and which now has achieved international #1 best-selling status, which is pretty darn awesome, I think. So I'm really excited about it. And yeah, if you don't know who I am, my name is David McLeod. I am the lead author of this book. And I'm also a senior partner at the Wellness Universe. And this platform, the Lounge platform that we call it, is part of the Wellness Universe. So thank you for coming and joining us. If you're here live, please feel free to come on camera, especially if you're one of the authors in the book. We want to see you. Thank you. Hey, Nicole, welcome. Glad you could be here.
Yeah.
So, I just want to say that creating a book like this, first of all, writing, that's a challenge unto itself for many of us. Some of us have more experience than others, and so for some of us, it might be a little easier. But ultimately, writing a chapter in a book is a lot more work than you might expect. 3,000 words, that doesn't sound like a lot. Well, maybe it does to you. I don't know. It doesn't sound like a lot to me. And yet, trying to write a good, powerful story in that small amount of space takes time, energy, and really clear focus. And so I'm really, really thrilled that all my co-authors for this project did an absolutely stand-up, kick-butt job and really created a book that I think is a massive, massive gift to the whole world. It's really awesome to be part of this. And then, of course, as the project was unfolding and we got to know each other, we did a bunch of other things that seemed to be relevant to the work we were doing. And one of those things was one of our co-authors suggested the idea of doing a summit. That was Lina Orlando. She suggested that. And I thought, oh, what a great idea. And I thought, how hard can it be to do a summit? Well, it turns out that's a lot more work than I thought it was. And so I'm really, really grateful that I had my right-hand woman, Jeanette Stewart, help me out and she really stepped up and offered her services to help make this happen. And she helped bring together a committee of people. And she just did some amazing work to really support this. And so I was able to focus on what I do best, which is vote videos and all that kind of stuff. So it was really awesome. Thank you so much, Jeanette, for your amazing gifts, not just of wisdom, but also of service and support. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jeanette, and she is the worldwide coordinator of this summit. So please welcome Jeanette to the stage.
Well, thank you. And it's so wonderful to be here this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whatever your time frame is. And we're so grateful that we get to bring this live Q&A forth. And the first one was absolutely amazing. And I am fully assured we're going to have an equally amazing journey. I'm Jeanette Stewart. I'm an angelic practitioner and self-care specialist. And I wrote chapter 3, Your Word of the Year, How to Curate the Life of Your Dreams. And being in this book with these amazing authors has just been such a gift to me. And I'm not saying that lightly. Just every word that these beautiful souls wrote just spoke right to my heart. And we've been meeting since last December. And so we've really grown close together in a bond. And I was able to meet Nicole live at another writer's retreat in New York. So that was really fun. And then last month, I was able on a family trip to meet David and walk at the river with him and give him a hug. So I'm just so grateful for these experiences. So we had 22 authors in this book, and I'd like to read everyone's name. Not all participated in the summit or in the live Q&A, but they participated and created this beautiful book that I hold in my hands. And so I'd like to thank Frank Byram, Laura DeFranco, Eileen Dillon, Susan Ernst, Virginia Rounds Griffiths, Mary Jo Halligan, Steve Halligan, Scott Holmes, Sarah Jane, Denise Lefevre, Nicole May, Ricky McKenna, Lori Morin, Lina Orlando, Carol Pilkington, Janine Savion, Bonnie Sheldon, Gwenda Smith, Jennifer K. Sproul, Jeanette Stewart, and Star Studanovic for this beautiful, amazing international bestseller. So thank you all for being here, for our listeners live, and for those that will watch the recording. You're in this beautiful energy, and we thank you for being here. And now I'm going to ask each author to give a 30-second introduction of name, your chapter number, what your chapter title was, and where in the world you're joining us from. And so I've already said mine. I'm going to go in the order of the Hollywood Squares. So David, you're next.
Thank you, Jeanette. Yes, again, my name is David McLeod. I wrote chapter 1 in this book. It's called What Irks You? How to Transform Frustration into Fulfillment. I'm coming to you from Meridian, Idaho, which, if you don't know, is right next door to Boise, Idaho.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. And Denise, will come to you next.
My name's Denise Lefevre, and I wrote chapter 5, Yoga Nidra, an intention to relax and ease the mind. And I'm coming to you from Falls Church, Virginia, which is right inside the beltway of our nation's capital here in the United States.
Thank you, Denise. And Gwenda, you're next.
Thanks very much, Jeanette. Yes, I'm Gwenda Smith, and I wrote chapter 10, Embracing the Wisdom of Your Heart, learning so much more about love and how that helps to heal you and brings abundance into your life. And I'm coming to you from Perth, Western Australia.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gwenda. And Nicole, we'll come to you next.
Thank you, Jeanette. I am Nicole May. I was the writer for It Wasn't Your Fault, a preface to a positive life for trauma survivors. And that is chapter 22.
Wonderful. And where are you joining us from today, Nicole?
I'm in upstate New York.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here. And Star, we come to you next.
Thank you, Jeanette. I wrote chapter 21, and the title is When You Were Shattered. And it's creating wonder and magic from the pieces. I'm coming to you from very rainy and wet Portland, Oregon.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Okay, and we do have a person joining us live. Michelle, hello. Thank you for being here. If you have a question that you'd like to ask of the authors, you can either unmute or type it in the chat. And if not, that's okay. We have plenty of questions. So the first question is, how many of us on this call were first-time writers?
Show of hands. Nobody. Wow.
We've got a bunch of veterans here.
And so let's talk a little bit about some of the surprises that we found along the way in this journey. And we'll go in reverse order this time. Star, will come to you.
I was surprised at the amount of vulnerability that this required. It required all of us to take off that mask and show who we really are and what our wounds are and how we healed them. And that's no small thing. Because you're writing, you're away from everyone, you're writing to them. but it was a process of really exposing our hearts and souls. And I felt that from every other author also. This was much different than writing some of the other things that I've written.
Mhm.
Amazing. Thank you.
I don't
Anyone
know how
else
you
want to?
guys felt about it, but I think you probably felt something very similar.
Anyone else like to chime in on that? If so, just go right ahead. Gwenda?
Thanks, Jeanette. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Star. I was really surprised at what this incredible journey brought forward and the experiences. And I really think it was because of the way that David decided to add all these very special bits of bringing us together so that we weren't just anonymous people writing in a book that, you know, would it go anywhere? We actually became known to each other and built a lovely community. And to me, that has been incredible. And it's also increased the vulnerability. It increased, I don't know, the memory of what I wrote from came from my years of nursing. And then in our meetings and listening to everyone, because I wrote about the heart, it just seemed to pull even more at the heart. So it has been an amazing experience, totally different to previous writings I've done.
Wonderful.
Beautiful. Mhm.
Anyone else?
Well, I'll speak here. So I have written, well, I participated in many collaborations. And I've always found that if I wish to encourage vulnerability in others, I have to demonstrate it first. I have to show it myself. And I think what I learned in those previous experiences was if we can all come to that place of being vulnerable, which can be scary for a lot of people, by the way. You know, it's not uncommon. Vulnerability? Are you kidding me? You got to get out of. I have no idea who you are. You want me to share my vulnerable soul and heart to you? Well, yeah. Ironically, what I have discovered is the more I do that, the easier it is to make connections with other people. I remember when I was 20 or so years younger, when I was first starting to do this deep process work, the idea of being vulnerable was absolutely a no-no for me. There's not a chance in the world that I'm going to share my deepest, darkest secrets. And I was terrified to do it. But then when I noticed other people, and particularly other men, opening up their hearts and being open and vulnerable, I realized, and watching the reactions of the others in the room and seeing that they weren't running away screaming, they weren't, having all kinds of judgments. They were instead empathizing with these people. I thought, wow, this is something I didn't expect. And so I have learned over the years and through many, many writing experiences and lots of other experiences too, that vulnerability is the instrument of safety, not the other way around. You don't create safety first and then become vulnerable. You become vulnerable first, and that almost instantly leads to safety. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that we should be vulnerable in every situation or, divulge everything about what's going on in our hearts. Obviously, you have to be judicious and discerning about that. But I've learned this, and now, so I guess I kind of encouraged people right from the start, just try and be as vulnerable as you can. There's no shoulds or shouldn'ts here, but if you bring out your whole self, I'm telling you, this book is gonna change the world. And I think we've already seen the results of that. So I'm grateful to everyone, and I'm thankful that I get to be vulnerable and know that it's not going to be judged or criticized or anything like that. I want to thank you all for being part of that journey for me.
Thank you, David. Okay, another question. This one comes from Denise. And after completing your chapter in a #1 international bestseller, do you have another project planned? And if so, what is it? Great question. So, Denise, I'll go ahead. I'm currently writing in the Wellness Universe, book number 5, which is a 25 Tools for Life. And I wrote about a rampage of appreciation. And I was in their first book where I wrote about gratitude. So it just felt like a really good bookend for me to be in the first one and the 5th one. And they have additional books planned in the future. And David is part of that, as well as Eileen. And am I missing anyone else, David? So that's a project that has multiple components as well, like David's project. We didn't just independently write a chapter and that was it, submit it and got it bound. We grew bonds together during this project. So
Yeah.
amazing. Anyone else have anything in the works? Star?
I finished a children's book for adults. And
I love it.
I haven't quite had the courage to share it yet, but it's done. And I'm actually writing it in calligraphy. I have the text done and illustrating it.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Amazing.
about what happens when we forget to wish, and that's the beginning of a dream.
Oh, I love it.
Wow.
A
Yes, keep us
calligraphy
posted
book.
on that.
That is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see
Yes.
that.
So
Yes,
I have timid steps going into that. I'm just starting the layout on the calligraphy, but I have the text done.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, keep us posted on that. So Nicole will come to you first and then Gwenda.
There we go. Yeah, so just today, I went live with a poetry book. It's a collection of poems that I use to heal throughout my life. So every chapter has a theme, but also within the chapter, it's in chronological order from my earliest poems as a teenager to now. Right. And you can kind of experience all those all those vibes and feelings right with me, I guess, as I contributed through the year. Upcoming, there's been a book that I started a while back, and it's called Positively Possible. And it kind of is an extension of what I wrote about here, right? It's all was started with my grandmother and her telling me about positive thinking and the truth behind it, right? Not just like, ooh, think positive and magically everything will be fine. No, there's actionable intent that is involved, right? And so I combine that along with the things that I've learned along the way from like the many books that I have read, because I'm a little bit of a self-help junkie. So I just kind of like, oh, these are the
Been
wisdom.
there.
I got to share it with everybody. So I'm hoping early next year for that one.
Beautiful.
Congrats. I know you had a book fair today, and
We did. It
that
was
was
my
awesome.
first time I had a table as a writer.
Look how
And it was
brave you are.
interesting. Thank you. You know, I don't know if anyone else here has had this happen. I suspect you have, right? Where I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm just not doing enough. And I'm sitting at the table today with my 7 books in front of me, and I'm talking to someone, and I was like, oh yeah, no, all these, I just did these this year. And I'm like, oh, I just did these all this year. It just took a moment.
Wow.
So it was pretty powerful, and I was really happy to put the international bestseller on our Gifts of Wisdom book. I 100% had it at my booth today. So
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations, by the way.
thank you.
That's great. And Denise, did you have something you wanted to share?
Well, I guess as a result of meeting all of talented writers and healers, this was a surprise for me to be part of this. it kind of reignited curiosity. So I'm kind of waiting for the universe, spirit, whatever, to direct me to what's next. I don't have anything specifically planned, but I had put my writing on a back burner, and now I'm ready to dust it off.
Beautiful.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Gwenda, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, thank you, David. My next adventure is a series of articles in the Women Thrive magazine. I'm really looking forward to bringing forward those, and from that collating another book and a part of one that I can collaborate with as well. So I'm excited about that. And aside from a book, Women Thrive Media TV have picked up my Soul and Beyond show. So that's now going to be aired on Women Thrive TV.
That is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm thrilled about that, taking people on a journey of soul and beyond.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've been thinking about a lot of different options. I'm going to be, so as Jeanette mentioned, I'm going to be one of the co-authors in Anna Pereira's book, The 25 Tools for Life. But I also contributed some poems to Laura DeFranco's book. What's it called? 100 poems. 100 poems. I can't remember the proper title for that.
100 Poems and Possibilities for Healing, Volume
There you
2.
go.
Volume
2. Yeah. So I participated in volume 1 of that, and I really do love writing poetry and sharing poetry, and so that's that. But I've got a couple of ideas of my own that I'm thinking about doing too, and one of them, in fact, Nicole kind of inspired this. She talked about the idea of writing a book on shadow work, and I've been poking at her. I said, look, that's something that we got to do, something I want to do. So we may be co-creating something as lead author, co-authors or whatever. We'll take the role seriously. We're going to be looking for people to write, and I do want to get 25 people this time, because I think there are at least that many different ways of dealing with shadow work. So that I believe is going to be a really powerful book, and my intention is to bring the same kind of energy that I brought to the Gifts of Wisdom, and I'm also contemplating a second volume of Gifts of Wisdom. So that won't be happening for a while, but I want to give this one a chance to really sink in. I want people to get a chance to take the benefit of this book and really embrace it, and then do whatever life wants you to do. And then maybe 6 months, 8 months, something like that, we'll talk about ramping up for the second volume. So yeah, you guys will all be the first ones to hear about it once that's ready to go. But like I said,
I'll start writing now.
Well, and you know how that worked out for you last time, right?
Yeah. Almost everybody said, oh, I totally changed my mind about what I was going to write about. So that kind of goes into the next question. So what was your biggest bit of writing advice that you embodied at this time?
Oh, I want
And
to jump
Michelle
into
says
that
she
one.
was wondering if there was going to be a part 2.
Hi,
So yeah, you
Michelle.
heard it here first, Michelle.
You
Sorry,
haven't finished
Gwenda.
reading the first one, Michelle.
Can you repeat the question, Jeanette? I'm a little confused by what you're asking.
What was your biggest bit of advice that you embodied during this chapter?
Okay. Well, I know my
I know
answer
for
to that,
me.
but I'll wait. I'm going to listen to what other people have to
Okay.
say.
I know for me, when Laura told us to envision our ideal person and who that was, like to write them a love letter. And so when I would sit down to write, I would envision this person's face and I'm writing this to you. So that really was helpful to me.
That was a tremendous practice to do. And since I wrote about dying of a broken heart, my experience of actually physically seeing people die from a broken heart. So the embodiment is to really understand your heart's call for love and not die of a broken heart. And when I was writing the love letter, I could see the lady that left a mark etched on my heart when I was nursing that died of a broken heart. So I was writing to her, even though she's in the heavens.
Yeah, right.
Powerful.
That is a very powerful practice. Gwenda, I agree with you 100%. And I should just like to remind everyone, it's not restricted to writing a chapter in a book. If you can use that very practice to envision your ideal client and how you would like to address that person. And you could write copy for your website that addresses that person. You know what I'm saying? There's all kinds of different ways you can use that, but it's certainly a powerful way to help you get focused on what it is you want to write for a book. Yeah.
I actually wrote poems to my childhood self, which is what I would hope that other people would be able to take those and go, oh my gosh, yeah, I have that wound, or oh my gosh, yeah, I was resonating with that. And that was because my chapter was around, like, it wasn't your fault. It's centered around, like, what are those things that happened to you, and what would you say to yourself now to make yourself feel safe again? Like, you didn't deserve that, and you deserve to always be loved. So my messaging came across, I think, most potently in those little excerpt of poems that I put throughout the chapter.
Beautiful.
Well, I think what I was going to say is that the piece of advice that I embodied for myself was to be as vulnerable as possible. I decided if I'm going to ask others to do it, then I better bloody well model it.
And you did.
So, and that's, yeah, thank you. I don't believe in the do as I say, not as I do kind of attitude. I mean, to me, that's just hypocrisy. So I try very hard to walk my own talk. I don't always succeed. I mean, none of us succeeds 100% of the time, but I think I do a pretty good job of it most of the time. So I'm very pleased with that.
Well, this is the first book, David, that I wrote in first person. I had originally wrote it in third person, and I sent it in, and Laura reached out and she said, "Can I ask you a question?" And it seemed like she was just asking a question. Well, is this because of your trauma? But it did extend to a whole other level of vulnerability to flip it to first person,
Right.
and really step into it and just say I, and send it changed the whole feeling of the chapter. And I left it in first person and confidently stepped forward. I don't know that I would have done that without you all and this wonderful support network, but I did, and we got there.
And it was a beautiful chapter too, or it is a beautiful chapter.
It is. Thank you for sharing that, Nicole. That's something we wouldn't have known except being here together and sharing our gifts of wisdom. So Eileen asked a really good question that we didn't ask earlier today. So how do wisdom and spirituality go together? Can you be wise without being spiritual? So how do wisdom and spirituality go together? Can you be wise without being also spiritual? So does anyone want to take a stab at that?
For me, they go hand in hand. You might be wise on how to grow a plant. You might be wise on how to drive a race car. But wisdom comes from the soul. Wisdom comes through your connection, what I call divine union. So to me, there is a difference between being wise and being wisdom wise in spirituality. And to me, they go hand in hand.
Mhm.
Star?
To me, it's all about connection, and you can't separate the two, just like she said. That if you're going to tap into that universal source of spirituality, you're going to gain some kind of wisdom and some kind of tool to use. So they are connected. We don't do all of this stuff just on our own. If we did, there wouldn't be community, there wouldn't be connection. To me, it's about connection with everything around you, not just the people, it's the plants, the animals. I think most of us have pets, and I've learned a lot about spirituality from my cat and a lot of wisdom from this animal. He's been my greatest teacher.
Yeah. In my case, my dog owns this house and he lets me live here.
My job is to provide.
That's right.
And obey.
Yeah. I love this question because, well, I believe that there's without spirituality, there is no wisdom. I think there is book learning, there's knowledge, there's intellectuality, there's all those other qualities that we have and many of us admire. And they're all associated with kind of left brain thinking. But spirituality is something that has to do with the non-linear, the non, it's right brain stuff. It's all creative. It's all intuitive. There's all those other beautiful qualities that come about as a result of spirituality. And what I've learned for myself is when I gave myself permission to start living a truly spiritual life, awarenesses came to me that I hadn't even thought about before. Stuff that make perfect sense now, but which I would have dismissed years ago because I wasn't in that spiritual place, you know? So I absolutely 100% believe that wisdom and spirituality, they may just be two different words for the same thing in my mind. But certainly, maybe wisdom might be spirituality expressed. We might be able to describe it that way or something. I don't know. This is a problem when we have to use words to communicate with people, you know? Wouldn't it be nice if I could just take my life experience and just say, there you go, rather than having to describe it all using words?
And I still wouldn't understand it because it's not my life, and I'd be going, what was he doing with that? What was he thinking about with that? I don't get that.
But I mean, what I'm saying is everything is included in that. All my feelings, all my thought process, everything. It's the entire experience is brought. If you could just share it, I don't know, maybe that's what telepathy is like. Maybe that's what telekinesis and empathy and all these other things. If you eliminate the words and just share the energetic experience, it might be, I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about right now.
Still be different. I love doing a talk about whose shoes do you walk in, because it doesn't matter how someone expresses something to us if it's not resonating or it's not something we have experienced. Even if we have experienced it, we'll still hear it differently. So it's more the feeling. What is the feeling that you put across that someone can pick up from? So if you went with all of your life experiences on me, I think I'd be going, oh my gosh, I'm not getting this on the level that I'm aware of. On the level that I'm aware of, and the feeling would even be different. So I think that's just one of the magical parts of this human experience, David, is all our differences, and that's why this incredible project you created has been incredible, and what it's opened us all up to experience together and within ourselves.
Right. Thank you. Star?
Maybe wisdom is spirituality in action.
Oh,
like that.
Good.
It's another word
Because
for it,
it's not static. It has a vibration. It moves.
That's right. Yep.
And we get those little glimmers of things that are called wisdom. And I think that's how it manifests.
Love that, Star.
Beautiful. Okay, and Lori asks a question. Out of all your life lessons, how did you decide which piece of wisdom to share for this book?
Could you repeat that, please, Jeanette? I was getting excited at Michelle's question.
Yes. Out of all your life lessons, how did you decide which piece of wisdom to share for this book?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Star?
I went back to the very worst thing that happened in my life and thought about what I wish somebody had said to me. I wish what someone had held me. I wish somebody had touched me. I wish I had known that there really was light at the end of the tunnel, because I was in a dark enough place I didn't even feel that. That's what I wrote from. What would someone in that position really need to hear?
Hmm.
What a gift that is that you did that, Star, that you wrote that beautiful chapter about being shattered.
We've all been there in one form or another. You don't get to this age without having that kind of experience in your life. If you do, you're really blessed. But maybe we're more blessed for experiencing it, because that's where the wisdom and spirituality come in.
Yeah.
Which is why David had the idea for this book.
Right.
Right. And so Michelle asks, so are all spiritual people wise?
Well, I will go a step further. First of all, I think that all people, all humans, all beings are wise because they're all part of the connection to the same energy field, to the same supreme consciousness. It's just a question of our level of awareness. It's a question of how many blinders and filters am I carrying around in my life, and how much do they keep me from being connected to that truth. That's really a case of how it's a great question to ask, because it helps to open up the idea that, well, if all I have to do is become spiritual, then I immediately am connected to all that is. Well, you don't have to become spiritual to be connected to all that is. You're already connected to all that is. You are an aspect of all that is. The only real problem here is that you may have forgotten that because you have an ego mind that keeps you focused on on the physicalities and all the fear-based thinking that goes on in your life.
Yeah.
That would be my response to that question. Denise, what do you have to
Anybody
say about it?
else?
Well, I think you all articulated what I was about to say when I saw the question kind of reversed. I thought that this says it to me more. I think wisdom, and you all said elements of this, wisdom is the expression of the awareness of spirit. And you can have a spiritual connection but not be able to articulate it or to be aware of it. But you can also, I don't think you're really wise until you navigate that connection and are really aware, and then can put meaning into it.
Yes.
Nicely put.
Agreed.
I like that.
Yeah, agreed.
I think it's very individualized, right? Because what is spiritual, right? What do we define as that? And that's kind of what David was getting at earlier. Like, I mean, everybody could have a multitude of different explanations for me, because I put so much emphasis in my life on emotional intelligence, because that helps address fears. It helps you with your growth. It helps you do the shadow work, right? It helps you question and try to be more aware of your intuition and your inner feelings. That could be connection. For other people, they might explain it as science. I know that my subconscious mind is a superhighway, and it has all of this information and it funnels everything into my intuition. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that person's any less spiritual. And likewise, you can have a spiritual person who's a little lower on the emotional intelligence scale, which means that they might not have wisdom in certain areas, but they might have wisdom in others, or they might not mesh with the right. I think it's just very individualized, right? Like, I'm not always going to get along with all of the same people that, you guys get along with, right? So it might just be that's not necessarily that they're not wise. They're just not in that same arena, or they're wise in different ways. And it's up to me if I want to choose to be open enough to experience that, or if they want to choose to be open enough to experience and meet me halfway and kind of find our way to learn from each other to expand our wisdom. And I think that David made a really good point. The only way to really expand our wisdom is through connection, because it is by listening to other people's stories. It is by experiencing life through their eyes and feeling less alone, or even feeling, wow, this person went through that. That's crazy, So I don't know. I think it's just very, very individualized. But I definitely don't think we could make absolute statements. All people, all spiritual people are not one way or the other, right? And not all people who are wise are necessarily spiritual people.
Well, I love what you said about the science side of it. As you were talking about that, it immediately brought to my mind a scientist who's been trying to, he's trying to open up people's minds about how we have allowed science to negatively impact our lives. And I'm talking about Rupert Sheldrake here. That guy is an amazing scientist in his own right, and he has done some amazing work on the concept of what he calls morphogenesis, or morphic fields, which have to do with resonance and this idea that how, for example, how does a particular cell in your body know that it is supposed to be doing function A or function B? How does it know that? There's some, well, he doesn't use the word intelligent design here, but he kind of implies it through his decision. He says that there's something in the morphic field, in the resonant field, that allows that piece of energy to know what its function is. And it then just simply starts shifting into that function, magically almost. So he speaks about spirituality without using spiritual terms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I find fascinating. So I listen to him all the time. I think he's awesome.
This is a beautiful way to sum up my rambling. Yes. Semantics will get you every time.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so here's another question. If a 40-year-old friend of yours asked you for your best advice, what would it be? If a 40-year-old friend of yours asked for your best advice, what would it be? I think for me, I would say you don't have to have it all figured out. Look for your joy, use joy as your compass in your decision making, and let go of the shoulds and musts. Star, I think I saw your hand.
I saw a quote the other day, and I just happened to write it down, and I think it fits this. Life is an amazing journey. It's just that sometimes we forget that we're the author and we can write it any way we want to.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's really good.
And I think so many are looking for something outside when they've got it inside them all along. Listen to yourself. Find out who you are.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's the key right there, Star. Remembering who you really are.
Yeah.
There's
all these facades that we have.
Discovery so much. It's about pulling away all the layers that you've put on to kind of protect yourself in this world, and uncovering the real you. And that is one of the most challenging journeys that any of us will ever do, but it's also the most rewarding, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you discover the truth of who you really are, And believe me, you are a lot more than all the stories you make up about yourself. Way, way more than that. All of that is just fluff, really. When you
Mhm.
get down to that nugget, to that really deep truth of who you really are, and you understand it and you embrace it and you begin to experience and express it, all of a sudden your whole life just
Changes.
transforms. The problem is, when I was 40 years old and somebody told me that, I said, screw off. This is another bumper sticker. You know, it's like the "we are all one" stuff. I say, oh yeah, nice fluffy stuff, great. But now I know that it's true.
Mhm.
When I was 40, I couldn't hear it. It's got to be, I believe advice has to come from the place of invitation rather than recommendation.
Mhm.
And
Nicole, you got your
Nicole?
hand up.
I would say, so I think intuition is really important, and learning to cultivate your intuition and learning how to listen to it is really important. But if I had to say one thing, I would say there will eventually be a time in your life that feels so oppressive or dark or difficult that you feel like you can't make it through it, but you can. And I think it's really important for people to know that you can always come out the other side.
Yeah.
So that would be probably one of my most important messages if I were to go back and tell myself something, or any members of my family. You can do this and you can learn to thrive from it, even when it seems impossible.
Agreed.
Beautiful. Gwenda?
Thanks, Jeanette. I like to say to people, become your own archaeologist. Go on the best, biggest dig you could ever go on in your life. It'll beat climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, jumping out of a plane. You know, and when you really think about what an archaeologist does, how careful they are when they get their little brushes and they paint off, you know, dust off the bone and then look at it. So I like to take people on a journey with their bodies like that, so they can really come to know their body and be embodied. But that's my favorite thing to say to people, is become your own archaeologist and dig deep.
That's a beautiful
Love
metaphor. And I sometimes
Mhm.
like to use the phrase cave spelunking, because it's such a cool phrase to say, you know, take your flashlight, go dive deep inside and find all the nooks and crannies that haven't been explored before, and see what you can
Yeah.
discover about yourself. It's amazing.
Wonderful.
You're a treasure waiting to be found, waiting to be
Mhm.
discovered.
Yeah, that's another beautiful statement. Yep, absolutely true. Yep.
And you really are a treasure. There's no one else in the world like you, never will be. So be your own incredible treasure and enjoy discovering your Aladdin's cave.
What
I
I
like it.
love about that, Gwenda, is I love the care that you embodied in your example, because an archaeologist is careful not to disturb, right? It takes great care so that you don't do more harm, but still inspect and still process
Mhm.
and still carefully care for that. I love that. I love that
I do
analogy.
too.
And David and I have
Right.
talked a little bit about that analogy as well, unearthing those hidden gems. So that was
Right.
really great. I just wanted to express that to you.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you.
Okay, and we have a question from Sarah Jane. Is it important to forgive yourself? And if so, why? Is it important to forgive yourself? And if so, why?
Well, there's some awesome questions here.
Yes, yes.
To me,
I think that question
forgiveness
answers
is-
itself, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, is anyone here going to say no?
Well,
Right.
here's what I have my own perspective about forgiveness. When I forgive someone else, you see, we've got this strange belief system in our culture that forgiveness means I agree with something they did, or that I'm okay with it, or you know, whatever else. And that's not what it means at all. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with me. So just to cite an example, let's say, Denise, you had done something that I was really pissed off about or whatever, and I was holding a grudge and thinking about all the ways that I want to get even with you. And meanwhile, you're living your life. You have no idea this is going on. You know, I'm the one suffering because of this grudge
Right.
behavior and this negative attitude that I'm holding on to. And the only way I can get rid of it is by forgiveness. And that forgiveness doesn't have to involve Denise at all. It might, you know, it depends on the kind of relationship we have. It depends on what's happening and all that kind of stuff. But really, forgiveness is for me. Now, when I apply that to self-forgiveness, well, it's a double whammy benefit,
Yeah.
right? Because now I'm releasing any judgment I have about myself, any desires for revenge or righteousness or anything else, and I'm giving myself permission to love this other being, myself.
That's a hard
how I
one.
see it. So is it important? Well, I
Yeah.
don't really have to do it, but if I want to have a happy life, then I really deserve to, I really owe it to myself to unload all that stuff that I'm carrying around so that I can be free to enjoy that life. Because if I don't forgive, I'm just trapping myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people get a little turned around with forgiveness. Like you said, David, I think sometimes they think of it in terms of, oh, that means that I approve. And even acceptance, right? You can accept somebody's behavior without approving of that behavior. You can forgive them
Correct.
without approving of it. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people get that kind of turned around. And I think that when it comes to self-forgiveness, right? If you don't do that, what's the alternative? Regret, would have, could have, should have feelings. You're not really living in the present if you are not forgiving something from your past, right? And there's a lot of teachings on that, right? We know. So I think that I mean, like you said, it's up to you. It's a personal choice. You might want to hold on to that. And I think that when you're ready to forgive. But I do think that it is an important stepping stone to moving yourself forward.
We can't get into that archaeological dig very well if we've got so many layers of resentment, bitterness, hate, anger towards someone else. But it's even more than that for me as I delved into forgiveness. We are our own meanest schoolyard bully. So we
Right.
say awful things about ourselves in being judgmental of why are we so stupid to let that happen? What was I thinking? And, we're not kind to ourselves. And then all the while pushing that hate and vengeance out towards the other person. But forgiveness is about being able to sit in our own heart and be kind, be gentle, and really let go. There's a real classic, isn't it? There's a bumper sticker. Let go of the stuff that we're harboring, because it affects, I see it in my work all the time. It's what creates illness, disease, and sickness. And it's all about the conversation we have with ourselves and why did I let them do that? Why did I let that happen? No, let yourself have some love and gentle care and really get that brush out and be very kind. And forgiveness is extremely powerful. To me, it's one of the main key to healing, because as soon as you forgive, your cells, your organs breathe, they relax. And of course, what you're pouring in is love and acceptance of yourself. And your whole body just goes, oh, at last. Yeah.
And I would say if
and-
you're not ready for forgiveness, if you're not ready yet, right? What Gwenda's saying, right, is then maybe try self-compassion first, because we absolutely are the worst to ourselves. I had an exercise I would do, because I would never speak to my daughter the way I speak to myself. I would never speak to my best friend the way I speak to myself. So I did this exercise. Anyone can try it. I put it in my journal so that I had to do it. And what you do is you take the exact thing you're talking to yourself about and pretend like your best friend or someone that you love has come to you with the same thing, and write out what you would say to them, because it will be drastically different than how you speak to yourself. And the other thing
Yes.
you can do to bring awareness to your inner bully, your inner critic, is to actually tell yourself, like you're telling your friend, oh, my friend said this to me. And what would you say to your friend if if all of those things you just said to yourself, someone said to your friend? You would be like, what?
Yeah.
So it's a good exercise in
Mhm.
self-compassion, and that can help open that door to forgiveness when you start to realize how hard you're being on yourself.
Yeah.
You
Terribly
know, and I
hard.
think I think there's another side of this too. Is we've got this whole forgiveness idea completely turned around, as you said. How many times have you ever heard somebody say, or even said yourself, "Oh, will you please forgive me?" What we're really saying is, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I'm going to take accountability for it. And then whatever you do is up to you. That's really what we should be saying. You know,
Mhm.
if you choose to forgive me or not has no impact on me. Really, it doesn't. It has only an impact on you. So we have to learn to speak more clearly and more authentically. You know, if I'm asking you for forgiveness, it's because I am feeling some shame or sadness or upset or, you know, self-judgment, whatever it might be, because of something that I said or did to you. And I'm trying to I'm putting the onus on you to make it okay for me to have done that, which is, I'm sorry, I'm going to use my favorite word. That's bullshit.
Mhm.
That is a spiritual term for something doesn't work. So, yeah, there might be a time when I can't imagine actually a situation where asking someone else's forgiveness makes any sense at all. Really, all I can do is take responsibility and accountability for my own choices, my own actions, and all of the consequences that they created, and then make a commitment to change my behavior so that that sort of thing hopefully doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
That is what I can do. And if you now believe me, and if you see my actions as authentic and real and honest and true, then you may, of your own free will, decide to forgive me or not. It's up to you. But all I can do is take responsibility for my own behavior. So I'm sorry, I'm talking way too much today.
No, that was
I'd
great.
like to throw in the mix there too, something that is probably very common for people, and it was something that really set me back earlier this year. You know, when you say I'm sorry to someone, I'm really sorry that I missed that, or I didn't see you at this or whatever. I apologized. I said, I'm sorry to this person I was co-hosting a radio show with. And without even hesitating, they said, your apology is not accepted. And it really, it knocked the wind out of me, and I felt it in my heart. And I found it difficult to go on with the rest of the show, to be honest. And I had to really work on myself after that to go, whoa, what happened there? So forgiveness can also be intertwined with when you feel you've said sorry, because I will not say sorry unless I really, really mean it. And it's not a word I just throw around, you know, like a lot of people are sorry about that. That's not me. So to have someone say your apology is not accepted, like, wow. And I think that comes into a layer of forgiveness too. I open up to your thoughts on that.
Well, if anybody says to me, your apology is not accepted, what I'm hearing is, oh, so your ego is all activated. You want to be all righteous about this. I'm not going to say this, but that's what I'm aware of. And I'm going to say, well, bless you. I hope that you find a way to accept what I have said as an authentic expression of whatever you want to call it, you know, responsibility, accountability, and apology.
And Gwenda, I would just honestly, I would have probably had the same feel like that. Whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
But what I often remind myself of is, oh, it's not accepted right now because they can't accept it right now. This is on them. This is their limitation. Like David was saying earlier, when you say sorry or you ask for forgiveness right now, that's up to that person whether they accept that or what. And that's according to their own reality, what they're dealing with, where they're at, if they can accept it or not accept it. And then as a former people pleaser, I can tell you that when I apologize, I mean it. And two, I apologize and seek forgiveness because I do care about that other person. And I have frequently had to analyze that myself. Like, oh, why does this person have that much power over me and my life and what I'm doing? I apologized. I meant the best. And if they say your apology is not accepted, even if I care for them deeply, I have to be okay to say, oh, well, I'm sad that that's where you are right now. And I hope one day in the future that you can accept that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what else I could do about that.
Off air, that is exactly what I said. I'm sorry, that's where you are. But yeah, I think that sorry for some people can seem like they're starting to step into the forgiveness thing, or they can see there's a connection there. If I go and say sorry to you, then that's kind of a softer way of asking for forgiveness, because some people simply cannot say, will you forgive me? And they don't have to, as we've talked about. But saying sorry, I just felt some people might like to look at that too. So it's opened a good dialogue. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I think this is an important topic. And I've done a lot of work on this. And I used to think, apologies are a dime a dozen. It's easy to say, oh, sorry, and then just kind of dismiss it.
Yeah.
And many apologies feel that way, very shallow, meaningless, have nothing to do. This is why I've often, I try to adopt an attitude of accountability. I'm going to give a real simple example. Let's say I'm supposed to meet you for dinner, Gwenda, and I show up half an hour late. And I just show up and say, oh, sorry, I guess I'm a little late. Now, how are you going to feel if that happens? You may, if you haven't done any personal growth work, you might just say, oh, it's okay, no problem. Well, it isn't okay. Right. Even if I were 10 minutes late or 5 minutes late, I don't care whether they say there's this is a socially acceptable degree of lateness. No, I'm sorry. Late is late, period. I made a commitment to you to be at a place on time. You were expecting me to be there on time. You've been sitting here waiting for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. You may have been worried that I was in a car accident. Who knows what's going on for you? I don't know. But if I take authentic accountability for that, and I say something like, Gwenda, I realize that I am 30 minutes late, and I agreed to be here whatever time I agreed. I have no excuse. I got caught up at work. I allowed myself to listen to that voice that said I could get one more thing done so that I could please my boss. That's a shadow behavior that I have, that I'm aware of, and I'm sorry, it happened today. And now I know that I have caused you some grief or some anguish, and I apologize for that. And what I would like to do to make it up to you, I will make a commitment to you to do some work on this inner people pleaser thing of mine. And I would love it if you'd be willing to help me work on that.
Yeah.
We can now create a whole new kind of relationship. Well, that's sure going to hit you differently than if I just say, oh, sorry, I'm late. Let's eat.
That's right. Yeah. There's real deep heart and truth and everything in that. The soul has stepped forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very true. And that's all it takes. Anybody can do this. And it's powerful, boy. What you do is you heal broken relationships almost instantly when you do that.
Provided that can be received. Because I do know some people where they view, it's interesting, I have come across this a couple of times now, where they view even an authentic apology like a, hey, listen, I recognize this is what happened inside me. I'm working on it. I'm really sorry that this affected you right now. But they see any kind of apology as an excuse. not a real apology. They see it as, oh, I'm letting you get away with something if I give this to you. It's a control tactic for some folks.
Yep, that's right.
So they also have to be willing to meet you, there. And maybe they can't. I was almost laughing at David's story because I have been late. And I was definitely very, very sorry. And I am actually normally punctual these days, mostly because I did the work. I realized with a friend of mine who's very punctual, and I used to be, David's shadow work is correct. One more thing, I can fit one more thing into my schedule. And what I learned from her is she was open and honest and authentic with me. And she said, I feel like you are disrespecting me every time you're late. And that really hit home for me. And I listened to her and I said, wow, I never thought of it that way, because I don't think anything of it when people are late for me at the time. Now I can see it different, right? And so I think it depends too on where that person is.
Yeah.
But if you give a heartfelt apology and the other person just isn't in the place, it might be temporary. Might be like, I'm frazzled still right now, so no, right? And then later they might be like, okay, yeah, we're good. But it really depends on the person. And I love that example, David. That was a great example because it really shows that deeper level, and the like, I'm sorry can start to seem like white noise. It can,
Right.
With everybody saying it. So going that extra level to say.
Who hasn't been late? and who hasn't let someone off the hook for being late?
Yeah.
We've all done both sides of that equation.
Yeah, it's a very good example.
Who's that? Is that a cat?
Gwenda,
Oh, can you hear it? That's a crow.
That's a crow.
Oh, it's a crow.
Oh, so cute.
The crow is
I,
joining us this morning.
They're my protectors, totem animals. So yeah, I feed them and talk to them, and they bring their babies to my backyard to introduce them.
Nice. Nice.
Very nice.
I'm a long way though. I'm a long way from where they are, so it's amazing that the microphone's picking it up.
That's nice. That's nice.
Wonderful.
Well, Gwenda, bringing in the crow energy to our summit. I appreciate it.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Nothing like it, is there?
Well,
They make the
anything
funniest-
else, folks?
I want to just thank everybody for being here today. This has been a really deep and very interesting conversation. It's quite, the energy is beautiful and it's different from what we had earlier today. And I'm just really grateful that you all brought what you brought. That's what we're here for. So thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank all of you.
Yes, it's been
Thank
an
you all, and
absolute
thank you,
joy.
Michelle. That was a beautiful
Yeah,
statement.
thank you, Michelle. Yeah, that's really lovely. And I can't wait to join everyone again. And I'm really motivated to want to come over, jump on a plane, come over to the US and meet you in person, have a summit in person. Come on, David, now you know how to do a summit. You can pull one together in person.
Well, sure. You come to Meridian, Idaho, and I'll do it.
Fantastic. You're on.
Yep, that would be awesome. I'd love it. I'd love it.
We need a little tour where we stop where everyone lives, I guess. I'll just have to go.
Well, when you're far away from a country, it seems like, yeah, let's just get together for coffee or something. Yeah, we only have 3,000 miles to travel for all of us to get together.
It'll be fine.
Anything's doable, right? Everything's
Oh,
possible.
Yes.
of course. Yeah. Yep.
But it's been an absolute pleasure. So before we sign off, I just want to really put my heartfelt thanks out to you, David, for having me, to Jeanette, Nicole, Denise, Star, all the other authors. It's been incredible. I'm so pleased to be part of this community, to have met you all and worked with you. And I look forward to more excitement, more archaeological digs with you, more fun.
Yeah, I love that.
Love it.
I love it.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you all so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, all of you.